So we recognized pretty quickly that in order to transform health and leverage digital modes of engagement, that if you put the person at the center, you have to make it easy and you have to create a one-stop shop for all things healthcare.
Welcome to This is Digital, a podcast brought to you by West Monroe. Join us as we talk to leading experts about bringing the digital mindset to your organization.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to This is Digital, a podcast about leading with digital to win in the marketplace. I'm your host, Rissa Redden, partner and chief marketing officer at West Monroe. West Monroe is a digital services firm. We are thinkers and makers who bring hands-on experience and technical know-how to get things done and to deliver lasting value. On This is Digital, we talk to experts about how to go about not just doing digital, but being digital. Today, I'm excited to introduce Tracy Saula and Matt Johnson. Tracy is a tenured expert and change maker at Highmark Health, where she has brought to life a new product and health experience for the organization, its providers, and its patients. MJ is a senior partner in West Monroe's Product Experience and Engineering Lab, where he uses his experience building, launching, and scaling startups to help existing companies fundamentally change for the better, through better products, more productive people, and a more effective operation. Tracy and MJ join us today to talk about a topic that resonates with all industries: how to shift an organization's mindset and approach from an industry-specific focus, insurance for Highmark, to a product-specific focus, and how to best cultivate a holistic customer experience. With that in mind, let's get started. Tracy and MJ, thank you so much for joining today. Tracy, before we start, I would love it if you could share a little bit of your background and where you found your passion for all things technology and healthcare.
Yeah, sure. So I have, my background is I've been with Highmark for, it'll be 25 years this summer. And I actually started in the finance area and, after a number of years moved into strategy, and we found ourselves, working for an insurance company, a legacy Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. And I found myself in a company that purchased a large hospital system and a number of providers. And I had the opportunity to actually go for about 3 years and spend time working for our provider company. I led operations there. And it's probably where I found my passion for healthcare. I started to see more about what was broken down in between the intersection of payer and provider, and it became real for me being on the provider side on how that impacted people trying to care for their health in very vulnerable times and their families. And, when I came back, I was really in a position at that point to do something about it in the role that I've taken now. So that was sort of the origin of how I got more interested into how do I solve the problems between payers and providers at a time when we were launching really a digital transformation at Highmark.
You've been able to shift the innovation experience in a highly regulated industry, moving the mindset and practice from insurance to product-centered, and that isn't generally the norm. I'm excited to learn more about your journey and what's to come. You've worked extensively on Highmark Health's Living Health strategy, which is a blended approach to connect payers, providers, tech innovators, and community organizations to build a health ecosystem that works better for everyone, a healthcare experience that puts experience first. Could you tell us a little bit more about the initiative?
Yeah, sure. So it really starts with our problem statement, and it's our realization, and I think the world's realization that healthcare is just fundamentally broken. It is, the costs are rising at an unsustainable pace. Despite that, people are not getting healthier. And if you look at the two most important people in the healthcare equation, it's people trying to care for their health and the clinicians, the providers that are trying to help them. Both are extremely disenfranchised by the system. So, we recognized in our strategy that to transform health, that you really had to put the person and their clinician at the center of the model, and then everything else would be built around that, right? Into an ecosystem that kind of preserves and enhances that relationship and doesn't attempt to sort of transform from one side of the industry or another side of the industry or outside of the industry, but really going at the core of the industry. And it really is, when we think about the strategy, and it's fundamentally looking at the value equation probably in a unique way compared to most payer organizations, where it really does start with experience and engagement of people and their clinicians, which we believe leads to better health outcomes, which then leads to sustained affordability. It's not a strategy that starts with affordability. It's a strategy that benefits from better engagement and better health in a way that creates affordability. So that's really the origin of the strategy, and is kind of, it's dovetailed. It's an omni-channel strategy. A large portion of it is focused on a digital transformation, but that's really kind of the problem statement and what we're trying to solve for.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. We've had a lot of podcast guests talk about the importance of problem statements, and that is it becoming a lost art, or is it something that we need greater focus on in school or in training opportunities? Because if you get the problem statement wrong, then you're not solving for the right thing. And I'm curious if that was your experience, that there was a challenge around creating that problem statement and ensuring that you had alignment with your stakeholders.
Yeah, I think honestly, I would probably flip it. I would say the fact that we had a clear problem statement made it easier to have alignment with our stakeholders. So when you were clear on what you felt the problem was to solve, it was much easier to get people rallied around, therefore, what must me go do about it? I think without a clear problem statement, you find people, there's a lot of activity often, but you can lose the plot line in terms of what the sum of that activity is looking to achieve. So by having a clear articulated problem to solve, it's always your North Star, and it actually helps everyone to gain alignment and ensure that the efforts are pointed in the right direction.
When it comes to customer experience, you have said you want to address all of the things people don't like about healthcare and make it simpler and better. This past year, Highmark, with a few key partners, began its rollout of a transformed digital experience for customers called My Highmark that is considered foundational to your strategy. How is My Highmark poised to support your transformation?
Yeah, sure. So, we recognize that in order to create a model for health that is more simple, that's more personalized, that's more proactive, that it really is going to require us to serve more people digitally. In healthcare, the digital transformation has kind of existed largely independent of payers and providers, right? There's a lot of point solutions. There's a lot of disconnected experiences that really people don't like. By and large, it's hard. If you think about a person trying to care for their health, if they want to engage digitally, they have any variety of different apps or websites or ways that they could engage. And frankly, it makes it hard for them, and then they don't lean in. So we knew that we needed to be able to serve people digitally. We also, in some way, benefited from the pandemic, which helped us to accelerate adoption of digital means. Another thing that came out of the pandemic was much more savvy consumers in terms of what their expectations of digital interactions are. So we recognized pretty quickly that in order to transform health and leverage digital modes of engagement, that if you put the person at the center, you have to make it easy, and you have to create a one-stop shop for all things healthcare. So the origin of My Highmark is really around how do we take those disconnected point solutions and create a single interface for health where a person can go, and it's something that they can access all of their health transactional needs as well as their health solution needs in a way that they don't have to go to a bunch of different apps, and in a way that it's designed to engage them. So if we think about all of those digital experiences that we lean into as people, we do it because we like it and it benefits us and it's easy for us. So, that was our goal with My Highmark, is to create something that people lean into and use and benefit from because they want to, not because they have to. That's where West Monroe, in fact, is one of our partners on designing this experience. And we're also working with Google Cloud and a company called League. And we always say it's the perfect blend of care and cloud and CX. So how do we bring all of the cloud data, interoperability, advanced analytics capabilities that we're investing in together with our aspirations to create a better model for health that is easier for people to engage in, more personalized, more proactive, and then create a customer experience, a digital customer experience that is worthy of that level of interaction. So that's really what we're working on with all of our partners.
And Tracy, you mentioned an increase in digital savvy. Mm-hmm. What do you think has driven that? What's conspired to create that savviness?
I think it's necessity, right? Whenever, during the pandemic, my observation, I'll just use my mother. My mother's almost 80, and, she was dabbling in, she had an iPad and she would dabble in digital transactions. And all of a sudden, when she didn't want to leave the house, she had to get pretty good at figuring out how to shop and how to pass her time doing other things, banking, what have you. And I think that it just made us all much better at engaging in digital transactions. And then it raised the bar. It raised the bar in terms of what people expect out of them. So I think the pandemic did raise our competency as an industry, those of us who did not grow up digital native. And I really think that was what did it.
MJ, a question for you. Tracy mentioned how the customer landscape is changing for digital needs. Customers of all ages have high expectations, but potentially different wants. How does this impact the way that you think about digital products and experiences?
I think the point that Tracy was making about everybody's expectations changing is the fundamental point. The other observation that I've experienced and have seen in any industry and in my own personal life is the sort of disappearance of this digital and analog world. We have our phone with us everywhere we go. We have data predicting what we might do. We have experiences like Starbucks. A quarter of their orders now are, don't touch the cash register at all. They're ordered on a phone. They're picked up in the store. So we just have different expectations. And there's this, it used to be design the physical experience, design the digital experience, and there is no digital or physical experience anymore. And I think with the pandemic and with the change in behavior, the just sudden change in behavior, healthcare recognized that, is investing in it, and is trying to mimic what other industries have done really well and say, how do I use technology to make the physical experience better? How can I do something ahead of a visit? How can I do something to connect people? How can I take data and use that to predict what you might need? So I really don't think of it that much as a digital product or a digital experience anymore. It's just the experience. And how do we use tech to make the time that we invest with a brand better?
Well, and it feels a little bit like the adage about finding the right medium for the message, that you start with the experience and then it might be a technology or it might be something that's analog, but you're now starting at the top of the house with experience, not with the bottom with, is this digital or is this physical? So you've talked about how individuals, especially those with chronic conditions, have to navigate multiple apps and websites trying to engage and find care. And that because of all these disconnected point solutions and digital experiences in healthcare, there's often low engagement in digital tools focused on managing a person's health. How do you approach solving the problem in an industry full of point solutions and disparate digital experiences?
I'd say you have to start with thinking about the way a physician would treat a person if they were in front of them. So if you go in to see your doctor and you're there for knee pain, your doctor's looking at you and saying, okay, they might have knee pain, but they're also diabetic, they're depressed, they may need to stop smoking. And, a physician treats the whole person. They look at you as a whole person and an accumulation of all of those needs. And I think any digital solution in health that's going to stick is going to have to figure out how to treat that person as a whole person and figure out a way to connect back to the clinicians that are part of that person's care. So if you think about what that means, there's a lot of interventions in care that cut across conditions, right? How we manage medications, how we think about transitions of care, things like nutrition. Doesn't matter what condition you have, I call them horizontals, they cut across. And then, for anybody, there's a set of episodes and conditions that can be managed digitally, everything from diabetes to congestive heart failure or low back pain. And, those are very specific interventions that are necessary based on a person's condition. So when I think about what we're looking to build here, it's really the intelligence, the sophisticated analytics that about, taking all the data that we know about a person to be able to understand what their health needs are and what their preferences are, and then help navigate them through more of a whole person digital experience than a set of point solutions that doesn't recognize the other parts of them. And I think that's one part that is key that we're really looking to construct. And I think the other part that is key is both designing that with physicians, like people who actually practice and care for people because they know how to do it best, and then recognizing that if you do it around them, and you don't engage them in that. For example, if a physician has a person that's engaging digitally and they get none of the data or none of the information about remote monitoring statistics from that person or what that person is doing in that engagement, it doesn't benefit them or help them to care for that person when they are present with them. So, using, interoperability and the data that we have and connecting that back to a person's actual care team, I think is also really a key to doing what MJ just talked about. You kind of teed me up for this a little bit in that it's not about the digital experience or the analog experience. It's about the totality of the experience and starting to make health the way we've engaged, in other, in shopping and banking and in other ways, be a little bit more natural in terms of how it all connects.
Well, and Tracy, it sounds like you place a value on multidisciplinary teams then, that you've got different perspectives that you want to ensure are in the mix in order to create the best solution possible. Is that fair to say?
That is very correct.
To build on that, Rissa, one of the things that we've seen, some research that West Monroe did, the average employer is buying 29 benefits for their employee. So when you look across, we as a, you work someplace, there's health insurance, dental insurance, there's 29 different things that the company is investing in. So the expectation that we have as users is that the data is right every single time that you know who I am. I log in to look at my paycheck, it better be the right number. I log in to file a dental claim, I want to make sure that that's right. One thing that Highmark has done really, really well, I think, is making sure that the transactional things, the base level, the data that you expect, like they're building trust and investing in ensuring that when you show up, both for the end user and for the clinician, as Tracy was saying, that you have the data that you need, we can make it a better experience, and that we don't become the 28th or 29th thing that you look at. Like health, very important to everybody. How do we make that intentional and a really well-designed experience? It starts with making sure that you're trusted and that you can trust the data that you're seeing, the experience is a good one, and it's delivering on both sides. Like there are actors, or there are people in a healthcare experience that are very different than many other benefits, doctors, clinicians, people that deeply know you and are trying to help you. Designing an experience that connects you as somebody with a need with somebody who's very smart and is in the business of doing what they're doing to help you is a really that's a hard art to marry. And Highmark's done a really great job.
And MJ, you touched on this a bit, but when you think about the value of creating connected experiences, you mentioned trust, you mentioned better health outcomes. Are there other ways in which you think about that value?
Yeah, big one in the healthcare space for both consumer and clinician is time. My kid is sick this week. This is a real story that happened. My kid got strep throat for the first time. The faster you can get antibiotics into the system, the better everybody is. And we went to the clinic and had to fill out, we filled something out ahead of time. And this is a primary clinic. We got there, we filled out papers again. We saw the doctor, we gave the information for the third time. And it was, a 3-hour experience that could have been a half hour. So as an end user of the system, that's a painful experience. On the clinician side, the amount of time being spent capturing data, recapturing the same data, documenting what we said in the visit, there's just a huge waste of time on both sides. And I think that in addition to just helping people have better health outcomes, we've been focused a lot on how do we take time out of the system? How do we save end users time, which makes for a more delightful experience, and clinicians who are burnt out and spending more time on technology than they ever have. That's been a huge focus of this work.
Shifting beyond the legacy mindset is a really challenging undertaking. In everything we've discussed so far, it's clear that Highmark cannot orchestrate this transformation alone. What does it take to get all the different players to be part of something that is new and something that is different and potentially something that is risky?
Yeah, I think it starts with, Highmark having a relentless commitment to our value equation and our North Star, like really being steadfast in that. I think that's one. I think, building the capabilities to share and ingest data there's not a single standard for healthcare interoperability. There are a variety of standards and ways, and being able to do that because it all comes down to the data that we are able to use and share to fuel the experiences that we have. So really investing in that. I do think, we know we can't do it alone. So, having a value proposition for the providers, especially those in our core markets, to work with them and in partnership with them in a way that benefits both of us has been key. And if you think about the reliance on vendors, this is not something that there are parts of this we're building ourselves, but there's a lot of reliance still on vendors in an industry where vendors have a lot of power and a lot of brand power historically, where their brand matters. And, we have had to really narrow down the pool of vendors that we will work with to those that have a commitment to the same sort of transformation, the same sort of outcomes. And that means there's far fewer of them, but the ones that we are working with, I would say, are the real deal, and they get what it's going to take to transform, and they want to be part of it. But we have had to be very, very steadfast in what we're willing to accept or not accept in this transformation. And that means we're playing the long game. It might not be, that we've been the fastest, but I do think that we're going to get there and do it right.
Tracy, I am fascinated by your use of the word steadfast, and you used it twice. I think steadfast is really hard. That I think in times of economic uncertainty, in a changing landscape, in, changing technologies, I think that is something that sounds easy, but it is incredibly difficult to accomplish. How do you do it? I mean, I know that's a simple question, but I think that that's really hard to not only align people once, but keep them aligned and keeping that steadfast mentality.
Yeah, I think some of it is we're always playing a short game and a long game. There are market pressures. There are, things that our segments need to be able to sell to our customers or to be able to service our customers. And we're always, looking at the market. And at any given time, I have capabilities and solutions that I am putting into the market that may not be part of my long-term answer. And then in parallel with that, I am working on what my long-term answer is. So I think that the key there is that if you try and react to everything that's happening in the here and now, and you don't segregate and separate the transformational work that you're doing, you will constantly end up, course correcting to the here and now to solve an immediate problem. So, we've been very purposeful about separating those and saying, I am going to do some things I do for the short term, and I know what I'm doing, and that's purposeful, but that doesn't impact the work that I have going on over here. And I think, it's been those two being able to run in parallel that's allowed us to navigate it. And again, when you genuinely believe that what you're doing is right and that it is going to create something that is better for the world, not just something that makes you money, something that is better, it's easier to stay committed to it.
To have that sense of purpose and shared purpose. Next, I'd like to shift a little bit to talking about the evolution to a product company. So Highmark is fundamentally changing the way it operates and delivers value to customers. How are you supporting the organizational change required internally to drive such a transformation?
It's been hard. That's one of the parts that I would say has been hard. And we really started, and MJ's been part of it with me. We started with, at the very beginning of this strategy, we launched a new mission and vision that sounded very different than anything we've had before. So our new mission is to create a remarkable health experience, freeing people to be their best, right? Very different than a typical insurance company. And our vision is a world where everyone embraces health. So we started very much so with a clear problem statement. We had our vision and our mission. And then we very quickly said, look, this isn't about building experiences for experiences. It's about having better insurance products. So as an insurance company, this whole strategy is pointed at, if we are going to differentiate ourselves, we can't differentiate in terms of networks and copays and benefits. I always say, if everybody in the world is offering a $0, zero premium Medicare Advantage plan, okay, we've obviously got to offer that, but you can't really differentiate. So if you want better insurance products, it's really, what is it that you're going to create that's going to create more value for the people who are judging the value of those products, the people who are buying them, the people who are using them, and, better economic outcomes as a result of using those products. So I think aligning it to our product strategy and our growth strategy has been key because it's fundamental to our products and our growth strategy. So that kind of brought it into the fabric of the company. We also have very clear shared outcomes. So we're reorganizing how we work. We used to be very much so a functionally oriented company, and we have become much more of a journey-oriented company. So we're much more focused on how do we start with journeys and think about, within that journey, what are the outcomes that we want to achieve in that part of the healthcare journey. And when you do that, it brings teams together, right? So if there's a group of teams that are trying to evolve a part of the journey, and they're from all these different areas, right? They're from analytics, they're from data, they're from IT, they're a bunch of doctors, and you have shared goals of that team, right? It really does help you to sort of migrate the operating model. And imagine, we also need, governance that that supports that, right? You have to be able to have a little bit more in this sort of way of working in a product company. You have to have a little bit more freedom in terms of the investment that you're going to make in any part of the product or part of the journey, and understanding the return that you expect to get out of that, but allowing a little more freedom for that team to be able to kind of innovate within that space. So, I mean, it has been a substantial amount of new muscle, and I won't say that we're completely on the other end of it. I would say, we've, like anything else, you make a leap and you make a leap, and we have these times where we make different steps from an evolution perspective, but where we are doing it the best, I would say we are really seeing the benefit of speed to market, much better products and experiences, clarity of the people working on it, and it's been an overall positive thing. But it does take a lot of intestinal fortitude and time and patience. And we recognize that it's not a sprint. It's something that's gonna take time, and we're in it for the long haul.
MJ, can any company become a product company?
Any company has the potential to become a product company, but not every company is committed to doing what Tracy just talked about.
Intestinal fortitude.
One part humility and just sort of recognizing where you are. Another part acknowledging that where you want to go and what you want to be is fundamentally different than what you might be today. And then a committed leadership group to work together to say, this might change span of control, this might change incentives, this might change who does what. But we're in it to become something different. And if you're committed and can really recognize that you're asking people to fundamentally change what they do, who they are, how they work, how they think. If you're committed to that kind of change and invest in it together, then you can. Then any company willing to do those things could become a product company.
Well, this has been a really terrific conversation, and one that I think listeners across industries will find motivating as a go-to for how they might want to spark change within their organizations. Tracy, I'm curious, what are you looking forward to next? What are you looking forward to in 2023 with this initiative?
I will tell you, I am definitely looking forward. When I think about one of the experiences we talked about earlier, which was our new My Highmark kind of end-to-end digital experience, we launched a minimally viable product at the beginning of this past year of 2023. And, we're really looking this year to be able to kind of have a full end-to-end replacement of what our old, quote, member portal was, but something that's much more expansive, something that's much more engaging. I mean, obviously, like any digital product, it will continue to evolve and be more differentiated over time. But I'm very much so looking forward to kind of building that out end to end and then migrating, all of our lives onto it, because I think it unlocks a lot of the value that we want to get. So this is still sort of, if I were to say 23, it's the end of our foundational year. We will sort of have that end-to-end digital experience. Mm-hmm. We will have more of our longer-term interoperability strategy and those capabilities in place or well to being in place. A lot of our advanced analytic tools that we've been migrating to the cloud are available and using that, more nimble data. So I think we're getting ourselves to a place where the foundation is really, really going to be well set to start to transform kind of those experiences kind of more holistically. So that's probably what I'm most excited about.
That's fantastic. And MJ, what are you looking forward to in 2023?
I would echo the sentiment that Tracy really said. I think, there's been so much change in the last 18 months and so much foundation building and capability building. I think the most exciting part right now is watching the lights go off and the light bulbs turn on the teams and go, wow, we can do that a lot faster. Wow, we have that capability and we didn't have it before. Wow, we don't have to wait 3 months, 6 months for that part of the data to be available to the experience. So I'm most excited about the speed to evolution and the speed to change. And that's the big difference that I see now and experience now versus even a year ago.
My final question for you both is one that we like to ask all of our guests. What does digital mean to you?
I think it means a gateway to a more personalized, proactive, and simple experience.
Great. MJ, what does digital mean to you?
It's like an enhanced companion. If I'm going shopping, it makes that better. If I'm listening to music or going to a show, it makes it better. If I'm trying to coordinate something with friends, it makes it better. I hope it's not a time suck. I hope it's not all the bad things we hear about technology today, but I really see it as a way to make physical experiences or to accomplish something as a team or as a goal easier, better, faster.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy and MJ. It's been a delightful conversation with you both. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to This is Digital. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow or subscribe on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget to leave us a review. For more information on This is Digital, visit westmonroe.com/thisisdigital.